Happy Monday, happy July 9th, happy Tuesday it is. See, I'm so used to doing it Monday too. All right, I made a mistake, right? So welcome to TGL. Tonight's going to be a panel. I have very little news to talk about before we get to the panel. So if you're wanting to participate in said panel, by all means, get in there and we'll bring everybody in just a very few short minutes, okay? The reason I did the day is I wanted to let people know in advance, like, hey, this is definitely going to be a panel. Here's what the subject matter is going to be. And I thought, in my infinite wisdom, I really thought that Sunday was Saturday and that Monday was Sunday. And I woke up and I looked at the day and I'm like, shit, I forgot to let people know what's going on. So, yeah. That's a whole thing. So I apologize for the delay, but I hope everyone that wants to be in on this can be in on this. If you don't know where it is and you are a member, if you're a member on YouTube, you go to the community page and you'll see it as the pinned item. It's only going to be available to you. Same goes for Patreon. Okay, so if you go there, if you're having problems, get with a mod. They'll probably be able to direct you. And if they're having problems, I will help. We'll make sure you guys, anyone who wants to participate that's a member or a Patreon, will get in. Okay? So I see Bjorn Jorgensen and Epic Badger and Largo's Lair and Johnny Sorensen and Gojatron and Ian Sweeney and Payne's Toy Samples. Really good to see you, brother. Really, really good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Been following your fitness progress. Fucking awesome. Keep doing it. You're an inspiration, at least to me. See, did I say Ian Sweeney? Yes, I said Ian Sweeney. Who am I missing? It's gotta be somebody. I said Johnny Sorensen, I think. If I didn't, there you go. Representative Realm is here. And he just showed his little girl dancing Godzilla on the phone. She didn't know what to think. Nobody does. It's okay. Ingo says, wait, there's a panel? Yes, and I do hope the instructions that I gave work. If they don't work for some reason, please let me know and I'll get you what you need. Johnny says, fun fact every day is a day. That's true. Pottersing Palatine is here, as well as Rolando Flores, and I'm sure there's others of you here that just has said hello. Hello, it's good to see you. So, Chad's like, I hit the like button, FYI. That's a good thing to do. I appreciate that. If you like what you see, hit the like button. Appreciate that. Okay. So, we're going to start off tonight with some news. Some not great news either. No way to sugarcoat this. Thanks to World Made of Cardboard for sending me this, but the toy company that owns Minnesota's Tonka has filed for Chapter 11. This is a company called Basic Fun from Florida. They bought the Tonka brand just before the pandemic and have now filed for bankruptcy. So they have buried Tonka, which is, I mean, well, it used to be owned by Hasbro. So what's better? Hasbro wasn't really doing anything with it, but it really sucks. It really sucks that this is going to be happening. But I had maybe 2 Tonka trucks as a kid. One was an SUV with an actual figure inside it, which I thought was cool. And then I had one of the regular old Tonka doodads. And I had lots of friends that had Tonka. Huge part of the old childhood. So that sucks to hear. Other piece of news is a bit better, more on the pre-order front. Just went up before we went live. This Marvel Legends 2 pack of Rogue and Destiny, not the video game, but the character. This going up on July 11th, this Thursday. Depending upon the era of Rogue you're into, or if you like the character of Destiny, this might be something you've been looking forward to. It's not for me, but I wanted to make sure you knew it was coming, because you know how some of these things go. Like, they get announced and they're buried and they're up and then they go away. So I wanted to let you know. So checking in with chat here for just a moment. Johnny says, Tonka, going to that big ET pit in the sky. Yeah. I'll be right here. Yeah. Jason had the old metal Tonka trucks. They rusted immediately upon outside use. We had the old metal ones too, but as long as the paint didn't chip, they didn't rust for us. Maybe we were not as rough or rougher, or I don't know. Maybe because I'm older, I don't know. Because the ones that came up in the 70s and the 80s were tanks. They're really good. I agree, Ian. That's not my Rogue, right? I get that. So, and Rob wants that set to complete his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That's the people I think would want this. I didn't want to say it out loud because I didn't want to claim anything. So let's get into just less than 10, maybe 10, 9 or 10 pre-orders, and now available some big bag. And we're just going to start the show. We're just going to start the panel. All right. So here we go. In short order, I'm not stopping. Inku says they were trucks, not tanks. I made a comparison. Okay. Thanks. It's good to see you, though. So Rainbow Bright Moonglow, not Rainbow Bright herself, but Moonglow, is a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. It's a 12-inch plush doll, which, hey, if you're into that sort of thing, it's awesome that it's there. What caught my eye was a 5.5-inch reissue of the original Strawberry the Shortcake. Strawberry Shortcake made the rounds in my house. My sister had these. I actually liked the cartoon. I thought it was a cool, different kind of, toy line. Granted, it wasn't my thing, but it's cool that this exists. And it's cool that you'll be able to get these. And $24 is not a lot to ask for a brand new reissue of Strawberry Shortcake, in my opinion. Being that there really hasn't been a lot out there, I think this is super cool, and I am tempted, to be perfectly honest. Just because my sister had one, had a bunch of them, and they were part of my upbringing, so I might grab one. I might. We'll see. Also surprising to me, NECA is putting out 6-inch scale versions of Bert and Ernie for a reasonable price, because they're very limited articulation. Like, I get it. It's just the arms and the head, I think. But they're nice figures. The problem is this. They don't scale in the 6-inch scale. They just made them 6 inches. Okay? So that ain't right. If they scaled 6 inch, they'd be about 3.5, maybe 4 inches tall. So that's a problem. But otherwise, it's Bert and Ernie. What are you gonna do? Right? This, I saw the picture and I got really excited because I thought it was a reissue of the Troop Carrier belt thing that you could get. It's not. It's actually a Blu-ray digipack from the Art of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. So I believe there's a certain version of this, that a certain version of the book that came out, and it came with Blu-rays. And I guess these are the Blu-rays separately. So it's $35. You get 4 Blu-rays and it's 11 hours of interviews with artists and stuff for $35. That ain't bad. That's really good value. Yes, I'm pre-ordering it. Yes, I want to watch it. I'm a nerd, and I hope you are too. Last couple pre-orders here, which are going to be a bit weird. So Funko used to do these Savage Land and all these horror things, all in the Motu style, and then Super 7 kind of took over that stuff. And now they're doing Danzig and the Misfits, which is like, what? So you have a Glenn Danzig one, and then you have Jerry Only, the bass player, one of the founding members as well. Now these look cool. These look real cool. But $30 a pop, you're out of your mind. These are $20 figures at best. And they also have like The Fiend and a couple other ones, but these exist. And if you're a Misfits mega fan, maybe you'll pick them up the way I picked up those Napalm Death figures. But, you know, it's a whole thing. You either like them or you don't, right? So, in stock, this is the formerly exclusive Hasbro Pulse 2-pack of Mary Jane and Green Goblin. Now, there's been several different avenues to get this through Hasbro Pulse before. If you didn't want to patronize them and you wanted to get this, this is, of course, based on the animated version, but the Green Goblin is really good. I have one. He's beautiful. And Mary Jane looks good, too. Granted, again, animated series, but they're very good. Green Goblins are very hard to get a hold of in Marvel Legends scale. The price ain't bad. Get you one. For that new 3 3/4 inch 118 Ghostbusters, this is the Plasma Ecto one that'll fit with that. They have them in stock. The pre-orders are done. Here they are. If you want one, get one. I think $60 is way too steep for this, but for level of detail, hey, but you can get one. It's right there. And last but not least, I don't have any overpriced statues, but I've got high-priced toy here. The Marvel 112 Doctor Doom from Mezco, which has been tempting me. But it's $155. And it's a lot of money for a Doctor Doom, man. And he comes with some cool stuff, don't get me wrong. But, like, come on. That's a lot for one figure, man. And this is great. I love that it comes with all this stuff, right? But 150? I don't see it. You know, because everything here I could compare to the Spider-Man Deluxe that I got at the end of the year, beginning of this year, and it's 110. So I don't see why he's so expensive from their perspective, but it is what it is. I want to check back in with chat, then we'll get the things a-going. Remember, get into this panel. It's ready to go. Garcia says, probably because all mine were secondhand and paint shipped. Gotcha. And for some reason, my chat ninja stop working. There we go. Okay. I'm going to refresh this real quick. Is it working now? It's not working now. I don't know why it's not working. It should be working. Weird. Okay. Well, so much for that. So, if it starts working, that'll be great. But Jason Garcia said, probably because all mine were secondhand and paint shipped. Fair enough. Ian Sweetie said, I had a Tonka dumper truck that could barely survive scratch flying off a ramp on a brick wall. That's fair. Bjorn's the two things is pile of loot. Johnny says, thanks for the memories, Tonka. Amazing build quality. I agree. And Chad says, everything has a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive these days. It's so dumb. I agree. I think they should just sell the damn thing. Johnny says, the OG ones are tough as hell. I mean, Tonka and that strawberry shortcake. Well, those are pretty tough, too. Jason Garcia with a metal fan in-joke. Does Glenn come with a punchable face? He always does. He was born with a punchable face, my friend. That's funny. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. People saying good things about Doom. Gojatron says Doom demands high licensing fees. Running an entire country ain't cheap. Fair enough. Fair enough. Epic Badger says, is this the panel show where Jim picks his next date? No, it is not. And yes, Doom should be closer to 100, Largo. Think you tried looking into getting the panel, got confused. I'm not good with technology. I'll send you a direct link and the password as well. Because I have you on speed dial over here. Do, 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 do. Bang. There you go. No problem. Gotcha. All right. So, all fixed there. And I already got one person ready to go, has been waiting very patiently. So, we're going to get right into the panel here. And the title of today's show is basically, what are some good memories? Like, what are the benefits of collecting? Then I asked people to think of an anecdote or speak more generally about collecting, and have kind of just a round table about why they love collecting. So, and I'm really glad this particular person is joining because of the fact that I know he's got a lot of perspective on this. So I want to bring in Largo's Lair into the chat. And there he is. Look at that. And he doesn't know he's on yet because it's behind. It's awesome because I haven't actually enabled my thing yet. That's my fault. I'm horrible. Okay, so now he can hear me. Right? You can hear me? Right? Buddy? Jim? Are you there? Can you hear me? No. Okay. What the hell?
I can see you, Jim. I can't hear you.
That's so weird. Oh. Well, that's why. Now you should be able to see and hear me.
There you are.
Amazing.
So,
Hey, so much for a great transition. Bjorn says he can hear us both. That's good. I'm glad I know y'all could hear us. This is better than this. So he's here. So welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have you. And I was just telling chat that, we're talking about positive things about toy collecting. Like what do we, what are the positive benefits? How does it affect your life in a good way? Because I think we spend a lot of time on this channel and in this community, our little circle, right? I'm not talking about the larger bunches of oodles and noodles of people. I'm talking about the people I associate with here every week. I spend a lot of time lambasting companies and all this shit, and I'm kind of tired of it. It's not that they don't deserve it. It's like, but I have those discussions every day privately, or just by myself. It's just like, and sure, we're gonna always call people out, companies out when they're doing stupid crap. But I don't have all this shit on my walls to represent the companies that made them. It's to represent memories and to represent nostalgia and in my family, both past and present and future. That's why I have them. So I want to start with like an anecdote about how collecting can make one happy. Do you have one on deck already, or do you want me to go first?
It's your show. You go first.
Okay, fair enough. I had one from my childhood, but I actually had one today, so I'm going to share it with you. When I was setting up for the show, I picked up this Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot vintage collection to stand him up, because he was laying down on the box last week. And I picked him up and I looked at it and I saw this card art right here. And
Classic.
I remember the moment when I got him as a child and just loving the accuracy of the photo, seeing the figure, knowing it wasn't the same, and then now it's like, well, that's actually a pretty good sculpt of him. It's a good figure. Um, and I kind of fell in love all over again because this was kind of like well, I have an X-Wing. I got to have an X-Wing pilot and I might as well have Luke. That was kind of all that was. And then you get him in your hand. And it's like, shit, I did have this as a kid, albeit the 5 POA version, vintage Kenner version, what have you. But this wave of memories came over me, not just of the toy, not just getting it, not playing with it, but also I remember when Star Wars first came out on network television. It was an HBO exclusive for years. And it was like the mid 80s. It would have been at least 85, 86 until it came on broadcast television. I know this because barely a week after we recorded it, I accidentally recorded over part of the trash compactor scene with about 3 seconds of the Rambo animated cartoon. I just hit the wrong button. I felt like a jerk. But I remember looking in the film when he gets into his X-Wing for that exact shot. And then because as a kid, you don't know what publicity stills are. You just assume it's a still from the movie itself, and sometimes it is. But it was just this whole little whirlwind in 5 minutes, just picking up a package of a toy I already had that I hadn't just looked closely at. Like, I was super stoked when I opened the box, and there he was. But then, in the quiet of the office, just alone with my thoughts, just all this stuff flooded back, and it's like, okay, that's the number one reason why I do this. It's because I like having something that it's almost it's going to sound cheesy, guys, but it's kind of like an idol. Ancient religions would keep runes, stones, idols, and you put them on the shelf to commemorate, this thing you revere. That's what a lot of this is. It's like freezing your childhood and your good memories and just putting them on a shelf, and you can just relive them anytime you want.
And we talk about nostalgia a lot,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in a negative sense, but
Sure.
those are the very, very positive reasons why nostalgia is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's similar. Being a child of the '70s, there's a lot of things. I could just collect movie memorabilia and posters and comic books. I've collected some of those things,
Sure.
but there's something very tactile about action figures, and that's big for me. Uh, for a more recent anecdote, I like military stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
when I recently got back into the adventure team, which was one of my earliest memories of toys, this and the Fisher Price Adventure People. But these fuzzy head kung fu grip guys, they're very tactile. They have the cloth uniforms, they're very posable. Um, this was very triggering for me when I first got a hold of another one after
Yeah.
many, many years of it not being in my collection, just because it is steeped in a lot of very positive memories from childhood. Being a military brat, every 2 years we're moving to a different duty station. He was kind of the only constant in my life was having
Yeah.
Joe around. So yeah, nostalgia is very powerful, but yet there's also, as far as modern collecting, um, if you're someone who is creative, whether it be through role play games or writing or however you manifest it, I like world building. I like being creative and seeing new things that I can fit either with classic characters or other characters that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether it be something as goofy as Beef Boss, who is just a fun, who doesn't love a guy with a hamburger head and some fries for a backpack. You know, why
A guy with
not?
a hot dog for a head maybe wouldn't like him as
Yeah,
much. It's racism.
Hey. But, I do some kit bashing and I create my own characters out of stuff I enjoy. Or I pick up something that's just, like a classic, like Frankenstein. I love monster movies. And so he fits multiple genres. He fits, action figure collecting, classic monsters, crossovers, because he's been with everybody from Abbott and Costello to Scooby Doo. So, gotta love Frankie.
Absolutely.
So these are all positive things about collecting for me. And even in, times where the wallet's a little thin and you can't afford some of the new stuff and FOMO and all those other adjectives or acronyms, um, we enjoy what we have and we enjoy what it gives us.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not just the thing, but also the community surrounding it. I
Yep.
made a joke in the comments earlier. It's like, who collects the collectors? I do.
Yeah.
I
And
live in
I'm
a place where, that's not something to sneeze at. I don't have people in my daily life in Guatemala who appreciate these things, but through the internet and the magic of the tubes and things that Al Gore gave us. Thanks, Al.
and let's put a
Wasn't
pin.
DARPA. It was,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's put a pin on that one and let's check in with the community, shall we?
sure.
Epic Badger says Largo, Largo, Largo. Just like that. And Johnny Sorensen talking about our technical difficulties says this is like hide and seek for adults. No, that's in the PvP version of a game called Watch Dogs. That's hide and seek for adults. I suggest you check it out. It's a lot of fun. Jason Garcia said, it's not the friends I've made along the way, but the dent I've put in my wallet. Random toy collector. It's true. It's true. It's true. Chad coining the term Jim Squared. I believe in that. That's good. I like that. I like that a lot. And Michael Schaefer, welcoming into the chat, says, Grind Jim on a Tuesday? Cool. Jim Squared. He got his little typography in there. I know how to do some of those shortcuts and stuff. I don't remember them. It's just a whole thing. It's kind of crazy. Roll my cardboard screams, hello there! We did talk about Tonka earlier, by the way. A little bit. Had a little, a moment of, not silence, but chatter for it, because it was just weird. Manic Plus Toy Shops in the House says hello. Says hello. Michael Schaefer also says, I'd love to know the miles or parsecs my X-Wing Luke put on his X-Wing in my childhood play. I would like to know that as well for myself, because I did have an X-Wing Luke. I had a horribly bashed up shell of the original 1978 X-Wing, and in its all white glory. Like, ships don't look like that, but they flew around together. They had fun, that's for sure. I see Stephen S in chat. I see Johnny says kid bashing. That's just wrong. Oh wait, shit, he means toys. Fair enough. Jason Garcia says Mattel's Jurassic World line restarted my toy collecting. Took me back to the Kenner feeling of, do you remember the first time you saw a dinosaur? Yeah, that's valid. Even though I was well into collecting when I started seeing more of the Jurassic stuff pop, Jim could attest to this, I was like dinosaur crazy there for a while. I even got him in on it. For that
Oh yeah, I've got a couple now, and
Yeah.
they've even found their way onto my cryptid team.
Nice. I like, because they now qualify as cryptids to a degree, because dinosaurs actually had feathers on them, then these representations do not. So they are now, in a weird sort of way, mythical creatures, which is great. It's good stuff. Okay. Robert's Infinite Realms says, Largo, I'm the same. Pretty much me, even though obviously some around me must be collecting. They hide it, though. Yeah, not everyone's out with their collecting, so to speak, which is a weird thing. I don't get why. Well, let me rephrase that. I do understand. I do not advocate this. Did you ever know anybody that collected stuff but kept it on the DL and didn't tell
Yes.
anybody? Yeah.
And part of it is having that separation. If they're work people or people professionally, there's a great desire to keep that separate from the things you cherish and enjoy, especially if it's, like Nancy at the office that you really hate. It's like you don't want to give her ammunition. It's like, oh yeah, and he collects little dollies too. It's like,
Oh,
shut
sure.
up, Nancy. I don't know.
I I didn't really think of it like that because I was always on Front Street with whatever I was about. If someone asked, I would generally just not say anything if no one asked. In like a shirt and tie environment, especially, it's like no one cares. But in certain work environments where you're encouraged to wear a T-shirt, whatever you want, and it's a lot more, shall we say, casual, for lack of a better word. It's easier to just be open. In fact, one place I worked at for almost 4 years, everyone had a toy collection at their desk in my department. Everybody. And you were bullied into collecting toys, as a matter of fact. It's true. It's true. It actually happened. I do see that the Epic Badger Jesse Hughes has rejoined the Patreon, so I'm hoping that means he's on his way in here. He's like, I can't not say good things, which is good. He's a positive guy.
He's learned how to key in not only downsizing a collection, but micro-sizing because of what he likes to collect. It's like it's a nice twist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you get enough of that stuff, it's going to take up just as much space as the other stuff over time. Because I've looked into some of that stuff. Not that I would do what he's doing, and there was for a brief second, and I was under the influence of substances, where I was like, maybe I should just get rid of all my 6-inch stuff and just go to 1/18 scale because there's so much stuff coming out. And then I thought, oh God, no, I don't want to do that. Because
a lot of stuff.
Right. And then it would just be like, I'll collect what I can. Speaking of the Badger, he is here. I'm going to add him into our group. Here he is, the Badger. Yay!
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, good. Sorry, I also have YouTube up, so I was like hurrying, trying to like mute it so it didn't get feedback.
Right.
Hello, I haven't talked to you fellas
There
in
does
a
seem
long
to be an
time.
audio delay when we first come in, but
Yeah.
we're getting there.
I'm good here.
Okay, are we okay?
Yeah. I think we're okay. So,
All right.
Let's just, for those of you who don't know, this is the Epic Badger right there. We're right here. It's so, yeah, it's there. Yeah. And a few weeks ago, among other things, he sent me this beautiful tank, and I promised him that it would be on my desk, and it is right in front of me. Along with other, like, I have all the Hot Wheels and various Hot Wheel-esque stuff people have sent me over the years. A lot of them came from Bjorn, some came from other sources, but they're all here. And I got this tank right behind him, like, about to crush him, which is great. It's very
And
cool.
that is if I understand,
Everybody needs a desk buddy.
if I understand, that is a AAV7 is the designation.
I am not. I'm
So,
not hearing you, buddy.
oh, can you hear me, Jim?
Yes.
Can you hear him, Jim?
Yes.
Oh, it's just me.
Yeah. You're good.
Okay. Can people on the chat hear me? There's a delay, of course.
So Ian, I do see what you're talking about, and I've already fixed it, and I'll be turning it up here in just a second.
They cannot hear me.
Say
Oh wait,
something.
Goji says he can hear everyone. Yeah, okay. Hi everyone.
And my mic's back to normal volume for everybody else. So, okay. Okay, so Inku was trolling, saying he couldn't hear you. But Inku taught me how to stream, so they get away with everything. All right? All right, good. All right, cool. So thank you, though, Ian, for bringing that up. I have gone entire 3-hour streams with people not telling me they couldn't hear something. They just assumed everything was fine. And I'm like, no, you got to tell me we can't hear stuff. So what, for those that maybe stream or just maybe are interested, right as I was switching over into everything, all of my displays went black for half a second and came back. And when that happens, it'll sometimes refresh cache in a weird way and stuff like that. And it actually nullified all of my settings for audio in the thing we're using to all be together. But I fixed it, and it's fine now. So we're good. Sorry about all that. I can't have any of these fucking things without something going wrong. It's great. It's good for me. Yeah. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you have an anecdote or anecdotes? Because we'll go anecdotes in a circle like, for the rest of the show. But give me some of your thoughts, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So here's an anecdote. I have a bachelor's in history, even though that's not my primary focus right now with my job. But while I like toy collecting, it has opened me up to new areas to explore, including companies and history. And so I've been really hardcore on learning about Galoob, including getting correspondence and other cool things. Just some nice flavor text. Not between me and people, but like correspondence from catalogs that people have traded with each other and marketing teams. So toy collecting has led me down a whole new rabbit hole, which has made me really excited and happy because I am at a point where I have cut back on a lot of plastic. I still get a few things here and there, like you can see on the shelf. You know, I'm still collecting little micro stuff, and this isn't everything, but it's just a single display. But it's the stuff that makes me happy. And it just leads me down bigger and bigger rabbit holes. I find something and then I get excited. So I go through the catalogs to find it. And then I start to explore, how did they come up with this idea? This apparently is an idea they've been doing on other lines. And so it just leads me deeper and deeper into this history project I've been on, learning about Galoob.
So I think it would be accurate to say that your traditional toy collecting has morphed into toy anthropology.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Because there's a handful of people out there in the space that I know of that take the history part of it that seriously. And even the ones that do have like the history of this or the history of that, like they're not digging as deep as I know you're capable of. So, I mean, he's like, let me show you. Nice. You know, I mean,
and there's a lot of ways that cross-pollinates too. I do a lot of folklore stuff. I know Badger does, you do too, as a hobby. And there's a lot of ways that what's represented in the plastic and the dollies and the things we enjoy have roots in folklore and stories and things that are part of our zeitgeist.
Like one of the things that I thought about doing when this actually right when Badger sent me that Iwo Jima thing that's right there. No, that hand. It's right there. So the Iwo Jima display, and I was working towards all the Marines of the G.I. Joe line. I still am. I'm short a couple, but I was like, man, I wish Marauders or something like that were cheaper, so I could just make rank and file Marines from the era that I joined, and I would just make like a mock-up of my platoon because I have extensive photography of my platoon, and I would love to just recreate those kids and just put them on a shelf and like do a whole thing or do like a shadow box display of everybody, you know. And I abandoned that idea because it's so cost prohibitive to do something like that. Short of, because no one really makes figures quite like that. And if they did, I would still have to like repaint faces and that. If I could just get like generic Marine figures in the G.I. Joe style, O-ring style, like, oh man, like it's on at that point. I would make one of my dad. I would make one of, you know, from Coast Guard. Like I would do all kinds of shit like that. But that came from, you know, you sending me that from a historical context, knowing that that meant something to me as a Marine. And then it made me go, ooh, there's all the other stuff you could do. But then, as you all know, my love of toys just vomited all over my wallet. And even though I've slowed down at least 80%, stuff still trickles in, whether from the goodwill of friends like yourselves, or from a good deal, or any combination thereof. And I don't think I'm ever going to truly like halt, but there are going to be points where collecting is at a lull or at a near standstill. And that's why we're talking about this today, because like I said in that earlier story, I just picked up one toy, and for like a half hour, I was just filled with warmth and memories, and I smiled, and I'm like, and I have him again, you know. And it makes sense. And every day I look down, you know, any day I'm sitting at my desk for more than 5 seconds, I look at all these Matchbox, Hot Wheels, whatever cars they are, they're all different, whatever. And I see the tank, and I see those, and I see this miniature land speeder that's right here. I've got a couple figures there. You know, I just remnants all over my desk, like a plushy Godzilla, the one that you sent, and the recently the Bandai. I don't know if I've shown this on the stream, but a Bandai Godzilla from Godzilla 84 that Gojatron sent me, which I was through the roof when he sent me that. You think I just downed a whole box of Pixie 6? I was so hyper in the video I sent him. It was so cool. And I just think about not just the properties, not just the memories of those properties, but I think about the people that they came from or the people they remind me of. I can't look at a Godzilla and not think about Gojatron for sure, and several other people. You know, it's everywhere I look in this house, I have a trigger for a memory. And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's not, the N word gets thrown around a lot. Nostalgia, you weirdos, gets thrown around a lot. And that's not really it. Having a treasured memory is not the same as experiencing nostalgia. I don't think they're exactly the same. They Venn diagram pretty close together, but it's not the same thing. Because I don't necessarily have nostalgia or like a strong nostalgia for something that happened just a couple years ago versus the property I might. It's just a weird thing that, like, it's like you said, it makes you happy. That's the important part, right? You know,
I look at it more like a, what's the word? Like a touchstone. You know, when I grab a Joe, I'm back in 1977, 78, remembering and enjoying that. And it's not just a nostalgia for a time and place, particularly, but it's emotional.
Yeah, and even though I'm getting rid of stuff that I don't have a connection to, like, I think a lot of the 112 stuff is fun.
Oh yeah,
but I don't need it. But what I am keeping is a fluorescent bright orange turkey that Gojitron sent me in the mail. Is it worth anything? No, but it's incredibly meaningful to me because a friend sent me I don't know what material it is, but this terrible looking image of the Claw, which is it's not a great, sorry, let me take that back. It's a terrible movie.
The fun movie.
Yeah, but also I have Ghidorable. He's a double whammy because he didn't come from you, but you showed him to me. It was like, hey, look at this. I bet you want that. And then Largo named him. And again, it has no value. It's worth less than all the figures the 112 stuff I'm selling, but he's staying on my shelf because he's got real value to me. And so,
Ian Sweeney brings up that you went through your eBay haul of Gloop catalogs earlier and said there's some really amazing stuff there. I have to watch that. That's going to be, I'm going to get a bottle of wine and watch
this
that.
This is the haul. The rest of this is what I've had. So it basically doubled my catalog. But there's other cool stuff in here that I haven't shown off yet. But yeah, I won't waste time on that right now.
Yeah, nothing is wasted here if it brings you joy. Gojatron says nostalgia gets stronger the older you get, especially with how rapidly the world changes. It's true. And I think that the definition of it might change a bit too. So for the sake of this discussion, I think when we say nostalgia, we're talking about childhood nostalgia. So maybe we could call it the CN effect or something. I think that because maybe we need to take that word back a little bit. I think as a unit of people that talk to each other every day, I think we've destroyed that word in the last 3 years, a little bit. At least I have on this channel, anyway. And y'all have watched the video, so you're complicit.
It doesn't have to have a negative connotation. I just think when people exploit our fond memories to make a buck, yeah, okay. Well, if
sure.
they try to remake something we enjoy and they do a half-assed job,
Right.
yeah, not cool.
Well, right.
And that word nostalgia is how do I phrase this? Depending on who you're listening to, nostalgia is a word that it feels like some people who are older than I am, it's a very specific period of time, 70s and 80s, and my stuff doesn't get thrown into that even if I use the word nostalgia, because for me, I'm referring to my childhood. Yeah. But that word nostalgia also tends to get used in a very specific way in YouTube communities. And I often have to remind people like it's very personal. We all have our own nostalgia, but in a toy collecting space, it gets used in a very narrow definition.
Yeah. And to further that point, like Jim touched on it earlier, and I was kind of touching it earlier. I was touching it. But, you know, this hobby, whatever you want to call it, whatever drives us to grab these plastic figures and dollies and what have you and whatever, I feel that if one is doing it correctly, and I put that in big quotes, the hope is that you'll meet other people that are into the same thing. And it's a slippery slope because they're both going to be really big enablers for you, but they're also going to be somebody that you can discuss it with and really share the joy, because I can't stress how important that is, for the simple fact that every day, every single day, if I go on Facebook, I'll find some post from some group I've been in that I thought I wasn't in anymore, and it'll be someone either I bought these, I want to explain it to the wife, or I have to hide it, or you know, my wife won't forgive me when I pre-order this or whatever. And I think that's a load of shit, frankly, in the sense that people should be proud to do what they want with their money. As long as your bills are being paid and you're not hurting anything within your family, it should be okay. And I also have empathy for significant others and spouses that don't have that kind of hobby and can see money flying out the door. So at that point, it's like, well, maybe you have to have a big boy, big girl, big boy, big boy, big girl, whatever your orientation of your relationship is, and just have a conversation and be like, hey, is this
it's
really
like, honey,
you?
I'm either buying action figures or I'm spending it on hookers and blow. Pick one.
Right. Exactly. I that's how I feel. But on the same token, on the flip side of that, you know, and I'm going to call out Lauren on this. She can't hear me. She's laying down. She's not feeling great today, and which is where I'm really comfortable saying this, and she'll see it later. And then she'll be like, but she is almost obscenely supportive of all of my endeavors, to the point where she's like, why are you even having this discussion? Just get it. You know, that's kind of her whole thing. You know, she wants to understand. So she asks, like, why are you struggling with this? Is this something that you're not sure if you want it? Is it the money? Is it something else? Is it space? Like, what? Let's talk through this. You know, and we've had discussions where it's like, okay, maybe if once we buy the house, maybe it will become a space issue at some point. At some point, we're going to run out of space. Unless we get there's a handful of houses we've looked at that we're like, well, not going to run out of space there. Because, you know, you'll have like a big toy room that actually works in the house. And then there's also going to be like garage space I can convert if I need to, kind of a thing. And it's like, if I run out of space, then there's a problem. That's not, the toys aren't the issue, it's me. So she has these discussions, and as long as we can reconcile everything, everything's fine. And to the point where, like I've said many times, she's collecting a little bit now. She is excited. She understands the context a little bit better. So the sense of, you know, camaraderie that comes with other collectors, for those that maybe don't, either they're single or they don't have the support in their family, or they're not out as collectors, you know, like a lot of people are like, well, I have my little corner. My wife gave me a corner of the bedroom. I've seen that a lot too. You know, hell, I dealt with that in my first marriage. I wasn't allowed to keep CDs on a shelf where they were visible because it was tacky. I'm like, you just want me to keep them in a box, and when I want to pull one out to play it, I gotta find it? Oh, how is that not tacky? It's a different kind of tacky. So I think the love and support that you can get from other people is as big a part of this as anything else. And I'm sure I've experienced that with other hobbies and so forth, but I think with collectors, it is such a specific type of experience that...
There's a term. You're familiar with Joseph Campbell, the guy that inspired George Lucas. He's often misquoted, or at least misremembered, for how he said, "Follow your bliss."
Hmm.
Most people took that to be hippy dippy, avoid your responsibilities and just be happy. And it's not what he meant. The idea of following your bliss is finding your true purpose, but also finding the things that you put into your life that generate joy, not only for you, but those around you, how you radiate that. I guess it is hippy dippy. But anyway, that sort of bliss is a good thing because it's positive. It's not shirking responsibility. It's not happiness, that is sacrificing something that's important, like balance in your life, but finding those things that really have a significance. And for us, it can be the plastic we collect, like it's the memories that connect to it. Also, if you do live events or, how we meet up with other collectors in the virtual.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to check in with chat real quick because they've said some cool stuff. Ian Sweeney says, I was having a rotten day earlier, sat down at the end of my bed and stared at my main Star Wars playset display. Mood improvement was almost instantaneous. Michael Schaefer also confers that nostalgia is temporary linked to the age of the individual. I agree with that. And Robert's Infinite Realm says, my wife says I'm a nostalgic person who's never nostalgic, and I'm not sure what that means. I don't know what that means either. I maybe she means that your nostalgia is trapped inside your little plastic men and women on the shelf. I don't even know. I don't know your wife. I hope that she explains it to us sometime.
Mystery
because now
wrapped in an enigma inside of a chimichanga.
Tasty. Of course. Yes. Okay. And Bjorn says there's far worse things I could be buying with my money. I agree. And Gojatron always cuts it to the quick. Says, I think we figured out how supportive Lauren is when Eternia showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. But she for her it was no different than me going like, hey, I'm gonna get this Blu-ray set. That's kind of how she viewed it. She, we went over the numbers and everything, but as long as those made sense, she's like, just go, just do it, go sell it, you get it. Johnny Sorensen wants Largo to whip up some Kit Bash lustrous ladies of the night toys. I'm sure that'll happen.
Those parts are a little more rare in my bits box. I don't have enough silicone to go around, but I'll see what I can do, buddy.
And Ted is here as well. And he also says, my wife puts up with my collection. Well, I think your collection comes with you. It's a kind of a package deal. So I feel like Lauren puts up with me in general. The collection is just a facet of that. Because I think that all of us who do this, any form of it, and not just toys, physical media, anything that takes up space or is on display that is specific to that person in the relationship, that's going to be a trade-off to the other person in that relationship. My mother was big into precious moments, and she had a bunch of them. I did not understand it, but I also understood why she did it, but I was like, why that? Because I think she liked the idea that precious moments, you bought specific ones to commemorate specific things, and yet the form factor was the same. So I think precious moments were kind of like the Funko Pop of their time, if you'll go with me on this. And that's kind of what she is. So she had one, like a little drummer for when I started playing drums. She had a little Marine. She had a Coast Guard one for my dad, college graduate ones for my sister and myself, things like that. And that was just her whole thing. And, that's a collection. Dad wasn't into it. He appreciated that she liked it. And he obviously was okay with her displaying them wherever. That was kind of her thing. As long as he had his
back to your idea in the beginning. when you were talking about the idea that in history we had totems, or people would have little carvings of people important in their life that they would carry around. It's like, oh, it's a form of that.
Yeah, it really is. Because if all of this is about the preservation of a memory or a moment in time, I think all of these qualify, like that movie or that album or that toy, statue, whatever. Like, I know Inku said a bit earlier that they're into quarter scale, 1/4 scale. I know that for a fact. They show off stuff all the time. And it's big stuff. And I was like, not for me. But if you love that, I love that you love that. And I guess I feel like, and I didn't expect this to be more into a conversation about like the outside looking in to a certain degree, but when things do get to a point where you can see someone close to the collector smiling because they got something, that's a special moment all by itself. Like yesterday, I came in here, I rummaged through a couple things, moved some stuff around, and I grabbed my Cartoon Collection Skeletor and the Cartoon Collection He-Man that I had. And I always said those are the only two that I need, right? There might be other things I get to fill out things from the line, like certain vehicles and stuff. But in terms of characters, I'm not cloning everything. And I put He-Man and Skeletor up on a shelf out in the living room. And when she came out in the living room later in the day, I said, what do you think? Do those belong there? And she goes, oh, that's awesome. Yay. She goes, good. I'm glad they're on display. I was like, okay, that's cool. It's just that moment where you get like double the joy from it when someone else appreciates it too. Like you have a friend over, they're like, oh shit. Those moments where we've all had them at least once, I hope. Do either of you have specific ones or just generalizations? Like, have you experienced that moment with somebody else? Whether on the giving or receiving end?
Mostly on the receiving end. I live in a culture where there isn't a lot of this type of collecting because these things aren't readily available.
Right.
But, people here have watched a lot of classic movies or seen television. So when they come into my office or the lair and they look and they see things, they recognize the iconic, the iconography. They understand the symbology of certain characters. And even if they don't know exactly who it is, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Who is that? And it's like, yeah, well, okay, that's King Tut. He used to hang out on the 66 Batman show. Oh, yeah, that's great. I remember seeing that show in reruns or whatever. So I get those moments happen a lot.
Yeah. And it is great that we have this type of community that supports these I got back from a 5-day road trip, so my brain is not going to have big words. I can't fall asleep until tonight. But like, I just think about on Instagram, for example, what we post, or on YouTube, what we post. I see the eclectic stuff that Bjorn puts out there. And I'm so thankful it's clean again and not his original stuff from a few years ago. But it's just nice to have these interests that we can share with each other, because there are groups online, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but there are groups who are just like, this is our thing, and you don't talk about anything else. Don't veer away from it.
Right.
But Largo talks about, Largo and I both have a love for dogs. And Goji-chan and I have a love for classic films. And so we can have these other conversations where toys were the starting point, but it's branched out into all these other areas that we can have these great conversations with. And we can post random things on Instagram, and no one goes, why do you have that? Why do you collect that? It's just like, oh, that's really cool. And it's a little bit of dopamine every day to have your friends be like, oh, that no one else here I think collects micro machines, but if I post something, people will say like, I had something like that as a kid, and that's really great. Right. It's just that little dopamine that gets put into the brain.
Absolutely. And it's kind of this thing that never stops giving back to you unless you let it. you know, because there's been some times where I'm not feeling great, you know, mentally, and I'll come in here and it won't give me the dopamine hit. Like, I have to stop and really just focus and be like, hey man, this is what you wanted. And then I start looking at the shelves, and I just kind of wander, my eyes will wander, and then I'll just stop on a shelf, and then a couple figures or something, and then I'll remember. And this is, you know, like we used to have I think every military at least has some cadence for a run, and there's a line that says, this is what you asked for, because it is. And so even when things are at their lowest, if I just take a second, and it's gonna sound cheesy, chat, I warn you, but if I take a time to meditate on the toys, I'm reminded of everything. Yeah, you know, and there's a few things that I can see that always make me smile no matter what, but I have to look at them. You know, one of them is the Superpowers logo. I see the Superpowers logo, yeah. I'm there, right? I see a Godzilla, I'm right there. Or like He-Man fighting stuff usually is pretty good.
And those triggers are positive, and it's kind of, you know, going back with what Badger was saying, you know, when you pick up something like this, you know, it hits on a couple of levels, you know. So it's a, you know, there was a movie, Dog Soldiers, where some military guys who became werewolves. Yeah. I love anything werewolves or dogs.
It's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, it was. But still so this is somewhere where I can connect with somebody like Goji, who has a love for horror, and it might connect with some classic movies, or I can connect with somebody on the music. You know, we do the Infinite Playlist. Somebody says Bad Moon Rising, CCR. This connects to that. Whatever. It's all those little connections to other things that really make for the fun of a collection, because those memories get collected too.
Absolutely. By the way, Lauren just stuck her head in the door and just big smile. Yeah, but she says hi to everybody, and I get to embarrass her later, let her know that everyone said good things about her. But it you know, I like that multifaceted aspect of it, because when one collects any one thing or any number of things, that it becomes about me having these things, right? But the sharing of it with others, and also how it can kind of having multiple collections of multiple hobbies, multiple loves can cross over. And Alexa, do not disturb. Fuck. I won't disturb you. They better not. Shit. God. See, every time I turn her off, I forget to turn her back on, and vice versa. You're muted. Why are you muted?
Oh, so you don't hear the dogs yelling in the background. I was just wondering, have you given her Order 66 yet?
Yes. I even did it in the voice.
Nice.
Execute Order 66. You know, there's some cool stuff you can program one of these things to do. I'll tell you that much. You have lots of fun. Like, I remember the first one I ever got, which did not last very long. I didn't use it for much because I only had the one. And I had it basically like in Destiny, we have a clan. And I programmed it so anytime I said, well, who's the best clan in Destiny? And she would say the clan's name. She's like, you know, rocks my hairy butthole or something like that. And it just, it's ridiculous, the stuff you can do. What was I saying? Johnny says the vibrational frequency of a space mutant toy is rather soothing to my constitution. Steven, of course, standing for Megalon, as always. I think there's not enough Megalon toys. I'll throw it out there right now. There's certainly not enough Jet Jaguar toys in the Godzilla thing. There needs to be more of those. There's been some good ones, but not every single one. Oh, Squiggles is in the house. Hello, Squiggles. See you soon, sir. Fuck, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, it's the sharing thing. So when you're like, you have hobbies that cross over, right? It's like occasionally people will come in here for the toys, and then we'll see a shirt or a hat, and they're like, oh man, he's into this or that or da da da. That's really cool to me. And then like nerding out about certain movies with you guys and stuff like that. And then that goes from community to full-blown friendship and family. You know, there's a lot of people that do collect toys that I met through this hobby that I consider friends and family. You two are definitely right firmly in there. I think you know that. And I don't want to say that toys are the catalyst for everything, but they certainly came into my life at a time when I needed to branch out a little bit of my day-to-day. My day-to-day was very solitary at that point. And yeah, I had some interaction, but it was like nothing where I was like, I really felt like I needed kinship again. I needed kinship. And it just kind of so happened that this was the thing that brought it together. And you know, 3 years on, which is not a small amount of time, guys. Like we're right in the heart. Like if I go back and look, I'm pretty sure my first toy video was like July 17th or 19th or something like that. So we're coming up on 3 years of this. And that's a third of a decade. Depending upon how old you are, that's a significant chunk of life. And it's weird for me to say that out loud. That's like, it's been that long. So it feels like I'm like, I want to start collecting, and I blink, and then I'm here, and I'm married again, and I have all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I have fond memories. I can look back. Like, I'll go back. Like, especially if it's like midnight and I just cannot fall asleep and I've had a couple drinks. I'll go back and watch old unboxing videos and stuff to re-experience what it was like to open that for the first time. And then seeing a smile on my face in the past still makes me smile now. And it kind of brings things full circle. And for those of you who don't record yourself doing stuff like that, I understand that it's going to sound weird. But maybe you should. You don't have to put it up on YouTube or anything like that. Just keep it on a hard drive somewhere. Because those things matter. It really, yeah. It's like we live in a day and age where you can bottle up anything almost, right?
It's trippy how, you know, for those of us who are 70s kids, grew up with somebody putting a Super 8 or something in your face at birthdays or holidays. So a lot of those things were captured. It's like nowadays, everybody has a camera in their phone. Right. It's like they'll take a picture of their breakfast, but they won't take a picture of something important or a sunrise or, you know, something that you want to look back on. It's like,
and that's something that I try to remind myself of. So I take more pictures now than I used to. Like I take a lot of pictures of that damn dog. So many pictures of that dog, and they're always the same thing. She's always just laying there because I've looked it up. You know, she's at that point in her life where she's a little puppied out. She gets her bursts, she gets her zoomies, but generally speaking, if she's just laying down, she's down. She's happy. You know, every so often I'll say something nice to her, and then she'll get up and stretch, and I think, oh, she needs to go outside. No. The stretching is actually supposed to be, I love you, for some reason. And I'm like, what? Yeah, the internet's not to be believed. But I choose to believe that if she does it immediately after I say something nice to her, that's a positive thing.
Oh, well, that's nice, because when my dog's stretched, it means she's irritated.
Yeah.
She wants me to do something. Oh. And she'll circle, and then she'll stretch again, and she keeps trying to get my attention, because it's like, let's go. I want to go outside. Stop wasting time, human. I think it is common for dog owners, probably cat owners. I don't know. I don't own those mini devils, whatever they are. But for dog owners, we won't film ourselves often, but we will do anything to film our dogs.
Yeah, cats are the same thing. And cats have, even though a meow is a meow, each cat will have a specific tone and a specific kind of like urgency that the meow comes with that you'll learn it means this or it means this or it means this. I know, for example, if Gabby starts to growl and bark after I've asked her if she wants to go outside, it's because I've asked her too many times and she knows I'm trolling her, and then she's mad. because she's not a very vocal dog. Not really. Ian Sweeney, want to check in with chat, says, I used to really not get those t-shirts, but they have those name lists on them, but now I really want those as heavy Echo 5s cut up and droid bait on. There you go. And there's a lot of love for like not made toy lines. I've seen Critters in there, Ghoulies, Young Guns is more recent, Tombstone I saw. And there's whole cowboy lines that are coming out now. I think it's just a matter of time. Ian Sweeney talking about the dime store toys thing.
Moo Mesa.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's so funny, as everyone who knows me knows how much I love Westerns, because I grew up in a very Western culture, and yet they know I hate that show. And I can't put a finger on it, because I love Ninja Turtles and I love Westerns. Something about anthropomorphic cows, I just cannot. It's like a line that's been crossed, and I just can't accept it.
Well, okay. How often do you have a turtle burger?
That's a good point, because I also don't eat lobster because I own pet crawdads, and so I can't have any shellfish.
Yeah. See? So there you go. I honestly think anytime I see a cow acting aggressively towards a human, whether in fiction or in reality, I go, what do you expect was going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, I get it. Here's a great one. Romantic Cardboard got a nostalgic feeling when he bought the entire first wave of a Final Faction for less than $20 and had not been able to do something like that since the 80s. Yeah, that was a moment in collecting history, I think, for all of us. Just knowing that that was a thing that was possible and they weren't crappy toys. Like, I've unboxed an ungodly number of these figures, and I still have stacks of them on card there and in there. That's going to be a fun display when I get around to it. But just the fact that they even existed, it's like, wow. And so do you guys think that... How do I say this? With all the stuff that we enjoy, whether like with Badger, you started off, you went ham, much like I did. Then one day you're just like, I don't want to live like this. I like the hobby, but I gotta focus it a bit. Even with that, where Largo's at, where he was kind of slowing down before, like you were kind of like, where do I go with this? But then you got really heavy back into the 12-inch stuff, seemingly out of nowhere. But it was more of a, you kept, because you always mentioned them, but you wouldn't buy them. And then just one day it happened. So I wonder, though, when we get to that point where it's a trickle, we all will get there, where we've gotten pretty much everything we could think of that we want, the occasional piece here and there, a good deal you can't pass up, whatever. Do you think that there's still a possibility that new things will excite you in the way that a Final Faction or something like that has excited people? Where it comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh, wow. Okay.
For me, yes. It happens now. I started watching YouTube videos about toy collecting around the time of lockdown. I think a lot of people started doing it around that time. I did have a small collection of battle squads and other action fleet stuff from Galoob at the time. But it seemed like every toy collector, everyone on YouTube, was very much focused on Marvel Legends, Black Series. It was like Hasbro's lineup, but also Mattel in a lot of the 80s. And for a long time, my Micro Machines were kind of all I had to represent me. And YouTube really didn't represent it. And then I started watching, the only channel I think that really represented my interests was Ed's Retro Geek Out, because he's very into the 90s.
Yes.
But lately, I've been seeing stuff from Jada. That's Street Fighter 2 and Mega Man. And I am of that generation where, yes, people who were older than me had video games too, but they were primarily teenagers when home consoles were becoming very widely distributed. I was the childhood generation that got the NES and the Super NES. So those became childhood memories for me to play Street Fighter and only know one move, which is press E so Chun-Li can kick her legs really fast. And that was my only knowledge. Or E Honda. But Jada hit me in the childhood nostalgia with Street Fighter and Mega Man. There's that dinosaur line of very brightly colored dinos with like modern weapons. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
I've covered them before.
Yeah, they're little like 5-inch figure, but they're like 90s action figure dinosaurs.
It's like Saurozoic, is it them?
I cannot remember, but it's stuff like that that starts to touch on the bright, the colorful, the eclectic of the 90s that doesn't make sense. It looks stupid, but it's just silly and fun. That's the stuff where if I had waited like 2 more years before I collected anything, I would be hardcore into stuff today because I feel like it's finally touching stuff I would be interested in. A lot of what I collected the past 2 to 3 years was really driven by what people were showing as like, this is really exciting. You should get this. Yeah. I have it. And I sort of fell into that trap where some things I really do love, other things it was, they're cool, but they're really not for me. And I sort of followed along with that drive that people were doing.
Yeah, I get that too.
And that's why I'm selling a lot of my 112 stuff, because really that has never been my thing. I just fell into that trap of, this is what everyone's talking about. It's exciting. I should do it. And then I realized at some point a few months ago, I gotta stop. It's expensive. I want to go on road trips. I want to do, woodworking and other cool stuff. I want to collect stuff like this from Galoob. And so that's where I put my foot down and said, this is neat, but I got to separate what is neat from what I actually care about.
Right. And like, I'll give an example of that for me, which is Action Force. I got caught up in like oh shit, this is really cool. And I'm not going to sell any of the stuff that I have, and I'm still going to buy some of it, but I am not going to be a completionist with that brand. And it's not saying anything bad about Bobby or Valaverse or anyone associated with it. Like, I think they're doing amazing. And if I didn't also have a heavy lean into the classifieds, which is much more cherry picky, if I wasn't already collecting that, Action Force would be much more hardcore for me because it would remind me of G.I. Joe. But for me, they came at the same time, and it's like, okay, I've got the first initial few waves, and that's always going to be, I'll always be able to say, I was there when it started. I remember this. I've got a great lineup of characters, and then everything else is just weapon packs for fun. And one of the things that I think I will eventually get around to designing and printing as a backdrop for an Action Force display is a huge gun rack of every weapon I don't have a character holding, because that's one of the key things with that line that I just love. And like every time I see new weapon packs come out, I'm like, oh, because that's just, it's something that no one really is doing, and they're compatible with so many different things. But it's still like at some point, it's not peer pressure, it's peer excitement that you then like becomes a weird form of FOMO or just like, I just want to see what the big deal is. And when you put the money in, you're like, this is cool. And I think at a certain point, everyone has to commit. It's like, well, I either want to have several walls of my house taken up by this, or I don't. And if I don't, or it's a financial thing or a combination of those things, like in your case, Badger, everyone's got to find how wide they want to cast this net of, joy or nostalgia or dopamine, if you will, right? And I think everyone's different. I see people that have really, really focused collections, and they only have like one bookshelf and it's full of stuff that's really special to them. And I get just as giddy for them as I do for the guy, because there are some collections I see like a huge room and like it's so cluttered, you cannot focus on any one thing, and it's like, no, like who hurt you? Like, get a bigger house or something. You know, like you mentioned Ed. Ed's a great guy. I've met him.
Smaller toys.
Right. But Ed has a relatively small space for his toys, but does a great job of displaying them in this way where it forces you to walk around and things like that. I think Chad is a good example of that because he's pretty hyper focused, but he casts a wider net than you would think. But everything has its moment, right? And I guess what I'm getting at here is just simply that I don't think that people should have FOMO or envy for someone else's collection. I don't think that that's fair to themselves. I think you should decide what you really want to achieve with this thing, capture it, bottle it up, and have a dopamine hit or a little bit of joy or a smile anytime you need it. Whether that means you just fill the whole house with stuff. I've seen those. What's his name? We were on the panel with him for Stu's thing. Is a number 13th, 11th, something like that. 11,000. Fuck. Someone please tell me who that is. But this guy, he streams from a room that's like twice as deep as this room, and the whole thing is just floor to ceiling stuff. But it's so meticulously organized. You can see everything. It's like a museum / toy store / dopamine overload. If that's what you want to do it. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, do it. If you want to have just a little thing in the corner, do it. If you want 2 action figures that represent something, do it. Chase the happiness. That's the thing. And I don't know. Maybe I need to do a video of the things I wished I knew before I started collecting.
Right.
You know,
and collections will evolve. You know, you, I, Badger, Gogitron, we've had different iterations of our collections at different times in our lives. And sometimes we're collecting the same things, but we've, gotten rid of them because of a move or some other life event or interest change. For me, it's like right now, I got in really heavy with the Action Force stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, it's like I don't collect everything in the line now. But I am looking for ways to cross purpose. It's like I use these guys for my BPRD when they're hanging out with Hellboy. They'll be hanging out with Monster Force when that becomes a thing. So, finding ways to cross purpose toys from different lines for toy photography or what have you.
Sure.
And some of the historical things, like I picked this goofy thing up. It doesn't really fit in the collection, but it has a direct connection to the lore of where G.I. Joe comes from.
But what's funny to me about that is that gave me a huge dopamine hit, because the art teacher that told me to pursue happiness and pursue my dreams, whatever they were, late in high school, I was getting tons of no's. So I was like, I want to be a musician. I want to be a teacher. I want to pursue art. And he's like, do all of it. Don't do one of it, do all of it. And he had one of those at his desk. And I just always thought it was the coolest thing. And as soon as I saw that, I thought of him. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Something as simple as that. It's crazy.
And it's helpful. One thing that's helped me, and this won't work for everybody, but one thing that's really helped me narrow in on what I'm enjoying in collecting and making it easier to collect is I have learned that I can live vicariously very easily through other people. So when I watch the 118, I had some figures of that scale. And then I realized if I just watch their show every Sunday, plug, I don't have a need to go out and buy that stuff, because it's like these guys are hitting you on the head of like, remember this and look at this cool new stuff of this scale. I don't need to go collect it. And it doesn't fit with the rest of my collection, and I can live vicariously. And I think it's easy for me because my generation, Jim, you're in that area too. Yeah. We've been living vicariously through video games, through Twitch, where I don't need to go out and buy a huge catalog. I do have a big Steam catalog because that's the curse of my generation.
Mine too.
And yours. But it's like, it's been easy for me to live vicariously through video games, through toys, through others, to where I don't need to go out and get it myself. And once I told myself that, you know, the conversation before was, oh, I like that, I need to go get it. Now the conversation is, they have it, I can go back and watch this anytime I want. I don't need to put that stress on myself. I don't need to buy it. I don't need to look it up. Let them have their fun, and I get to experience that fun with them. And that way it allows me to do all this other stuff that I enjoy.
And I think too that when we talk about, like, and I'll just briefly touch on this, boxed collectors versus loose collectors. I do feel like the boxed collector is going to hit that wall faster than a loose collector would. Typically. My thought process behind it is very simple. If you don't play with your toys, they're just artwork. And that's fine. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, part of the... Someone, I think it was Johnny, was like, well, how could you not get a dopamine hit when you walk into that room? I've said it a billion times, both on the channel and in Patreon and in private. This stuff not being depackaged and displayed the way I envisioned it is really difficult to look at. It's like waiting for your buddy to get out of the hospital or something. It's really weird, but that's kind of what it is. So yeah, I get like hey, this is great, but I know what it's gonna be, and that's the thing. And that's why every day I do a little bit, little something. Take something. Example, I took Red Tornado here out of the package yesterday because I'm like, I'm sick of him being in the goddamn box. So I just have him out, and I'm just looking at him, and, you know, I'll find a space for him on the shelf next week, and something else will go back here. These little things that update, you know, so over time it'll get there. And I don't know, joy comes in so many different forms, and there's so many ways to mitigate it. I can't even begin. I want to go back to a comment that Logic Blaster said. He said, collecting has enriched my life by being able to share this hobby with other collectors with similar interest, particularly through social media and YouTube. And what else we have here? Ian Sweeney only breaks scale for Star Wars items on heavy sale or in thrift stores. And Superman, Man of Steel, gets a permanent scale toy pass for him. Logic Blaster's abandoned 1/12 scale. Lack of vehicles, world building makes you want to continue. That is something that I can certainly understand. When it comes to Marvel being my 1/12, you know, bastion kind of a thing, where it's like there's not a ton of vehicles in Marvel, which is a good thing in general. And the ones that are out there, you don't really need them. So for me, the spectacle and the joy of Marvel Legends is to get all these motherfuckers together, just have them like facing each other, hanging out with each other. It's like a living 3D version of the Marvel Handbook, which I've referenced so many times. It's just very cool for me. But I understand why people might not want that. You know, for example, Ian Sweeney says, I don't get FOMO from amazing collections of displays. I just get inspirations or ideas, which is fair.
Yeah. And I think for me, I live in 3 different scales, you know, so obviously the 1/6 scale with Joe, because he just fits in that, for that 70s Joe, that's where he lives. You know, I've seen homages of him in other scales, but it's not the same thing. So there's a limited collection of him, a couple of shelves worth in my collection now that I've made space for. But I find with cryptids, anything, you know, like this goofy little plastic guy, one of the things I love about monsters and cryptids is scale is optional. My coffee troll hangs out, and he can be with my big Joes. He can be with my 118 guys like he is right now, or he can be with the 1/12 scale. You know, you can make them work in different scales depending on what photography or dioramas you're doing. So it opens up some new possibilities and imagination.
And you can diversify in that way, yeah. And
Sure.
I think that again, it goes back to playing with your toys. I think if you play with your toys, you engage with them, that's a big thing. Now, again, if you're a box collector, package collector, I understand. And then, again, it is just a display at that point.
Yeah.
And that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a part of my brain, I'm going to plant this seed because this is probably going to be a whole other show. But I feel like if you're going to spend the obscene amounts of money to get some of this stuff in a sealed box, and you're never going to open it, why not just find a high-risk scan of that box, print it, frame it, and put that on the wall.
Yeah. It's like,
Like
even if
what-
you're just doing album cover art, you can still listen to the album if you open
Right.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's why my vinyl collection is super small, because I just want the artwork usually.
Yeah.
yeah.
If we want to go back to enriching, because Larga just mentioned photography, I really appreciate with 112, but it can be any scale. It all started because I bought one figure for really cheap on Amazon for $5, and her name was Scarlet. And with that figure and the 13 other Scarlets I ended up buying through Amazon, I was
I have
able
like
to-
3.
You have 3. I was able to learn painting, which those skills have now transferred over to miniatures, Warhammer and other stuff, much smaller scale. The painting, I started doing a lot of photography. I started getting in the crafts because I was cutting up different pieces of plastic to make different outfits for figures. So it just collecting a single plastic figure gave me a whole new set of skills I've always had. I've always loved painting and being very tactile with stuff. I grew up doing woodwork with my dad, but it brought it back to me by just having this figure and being like, hey, this is really cheap and I can customize it. I'm going to buy this cheap figure over and over and over again and keep customizing it. People would tell me, oh, she looks great. That one looks great. And then the best part is, just like with baking, I love the feeling of baking, but I don't want to eat all the cookies.
Right.
So I take them to work and I give them to coworkers. I had all these Scarlets, and it's like, well, I don't want to fill up my shelf. I don't really need them for that purpose. So once I've taken pictures and done all that, I just started sending them to people. Just be like, here, it's like Oprah, like, you get a Scarlet and you get a Scarlet.
You get a Scarlet, and in some cases you get 2 more, or 3. Because I think I have 2 variants of the regular. I have the Action Force variant. I have a regular custom, and then I have the battle damaged one with all the scuffs on her face and shit.
You have version 1, which became version 4. You have version 3 of Scarlet, which is the more accurate one. And then you have Quarrel, which is the 3rd one I did, but the nicest one.
Yeah, the Quarrel, she's going to be with Action Force because I think that's just a nice little homage. But there is another one. So version 1 became version 4.
The first one was it was the first time I had done any painting, and I was making a lot of mistakes. Each Scarlet, I got better at pulling parts off and making sure I was doing the primer correctly and doing thinner strokes of paint and applying types of varnish. I was just getting better each time. And so that first one I went back to and said, I don't like your paint scheme and how I did it. So I took her apart, scrubbed off the paint, or I kept some of the paint, and I just dirtied her up.
Yeah.
To hide some of the imperfections. And now that was my field mission Scarlet. And then I sent that one to you.
Yes.
So you have 4.
Yeah, I think I do, yeah. So I have a regular one. I have the version 4. I have the Action Force one, and then there's another one floating around, I'm sure.
Yeah. But like I sent Goji the Wonder Woman one, and Bjorn has the Deke, the yellow and purple deep colored one. Jeez, I forgot all the other ones I did. But yeah,
you did a lot, dude. You did a lot.
She was $5, and the funny part is she was the best Scarlet in that line, because everyone just looked like a Fortnite character. Which
I guess I have 4, but you didn't customize the 4th one. You sent me.
Oh,
the
one
card.
the one I sent you because of a tiny minor imperfection, and I was like, no, this Scarlet has to be perfect. So I bought a second, and I was like, Jim, do you want one?
What was the issue with this one?
It on the knee. If you look at the knee, you can see the ratchet barely. You'd have to look at it from an angle, and if you bend the knee, you can just see it creep out a little bit.
No, I can't.
And if I wanted to do photography, it was always going to be there where I was going to notice this tiny imperfection. So I was like, screw that. I'll give it to Jim.
And I'm grateful for it because it came out at a time where I was like, they were coming in. My Amazon one came in, my Big Bad Toy Store, and I couldn't afford her. I'm like, I'll get her later. And then you're like, do you want this? I'm like, yes, I do. Yes. And then I got Duke like a few weeks later, and I need to take her out and I need to put them together. But I kind of want to get another Duke just so I have a separate port of the. I'm gonna have like a display where everyone's just kind of standing, but then I'll have like some battle stuff because dragonflies and stuff like that. But I have the scuffed up Scarlet. I kind of want to scuff up a Duke and have him holding her, like Crisis of Infinite Earths kind of thing, like the Superman, like like it's be a fun pose for no reason.
Well, see, that's interesting. You ship Duke and Scarlet. To me, it's always Scarlet and Snake Eyes. I mean, if that love triangle, she should be with Snake Eyes.
I only had the cartoon because comics weren't available in the mountains. I never saw a comic for a long time, and even the cartoons came later. It was whenever they decided to syndicate it, and that was after it had originally been released. So I had some
many years later. Yeah,
because I was getting Battle Core. I was, the 93 Joes was my time.
But what's funny to me about that though is that like I did read the comics, but I didn't read them enough to get deep into the storylines to even recognize that was a thing. So then go back a couple years to one of these panels. It might have been at Comic-Con, I don't remember, where it was about the G.I. Joe comics and everyone talking about the storylines there. I'm like, man, I kind of get these omnibuses. These sound good. But then I realized I would put them on the shelf. I'd read them once and that'd be it. So I instead turned around and bought the G.I. Joe animated series on DVD. And I have that. But this doesn't make me better or worse. It's just different. But I find that interesting that also because you didn't have anything else and you got the cartoon late. Like, did you make up a lot of lore for your G.I. Joe before you got around to the... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because they... Hasbro sometimes use similar molds for the faces. Not the exact same mold, but similar molds. Mm-hmm. I had 6 of them who had mustaches, very similar mustaches. So like Bazooka, Gung Ho, Backblast, Keelhaul, Dr. Mindbender, and there's a 6th one, and they became the Bazooka Brothers, where Bazooka is like Mario, and then there's Gung Ho Bazooka, like Luigi Mario. And so I had nothing else to work with. I didn't have a cartoon. I didn't have comics. I was sort of literate at the time, so I could read the card back, but a lot of words didn't make sense. Right. So it's just like, all right, you 6 are brothers, and I have no bad guys. So now you're going to fight Ninja Turtle villains, and that's my G.I. Joe story.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid hearing each sold separately. And when it was explained to me that separately meant they're not together, I thought that meant that you could only get certain ones at certain stores. Like this store has this store has that. So like maybe I'm the reason we have store exclusives now, like in a butterfly effect sort of way. Maybe it's my fault. Wow.
Some executive was standing behind you at Toys R Us hearing that and be like, that's a good idea, kid.
I really hope not. I really, really hope not. But, folks, I gotta say, this has been a tremendous show. Both of you, I really appreciate your time. There's always more to discuss. We're gonna have more panels. And chat, I'm gonna put this to you guys. Leave a comment on the video. Don't put it in chat. After the show is over, put a comment. I'm thinking about making panels a separate show and giving it a different name, having it be its own thing, and expanding it to where you have the panel, and then sometimes you have plus a guest that's not normally part of the panel, so we can kind of have these discussions a bit more openly and more often, and I can still have my, I want to talk about this, I don't want anyone else's input shows, So I'm hoping you guys want that, and if you do, let me know. But Badger, Largo, man, thank you so much for being part of the show, being part of my family, and being part of this, just all of this, man. I love you guys.
Ditto.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're always welcome here, man. You did not have to re-up. Yeah, spoilers, if you've ever been a member and you want to be in on this, just tell me. But I'll take your $3, bro. It's no problem. So, but I appreciate all y'all. I'm going to go ahead and go back to a one piece and we'll wrap this up. But thank you guys very much. Man, I fucking love those guys. Man, it is such a blessing to have men like them in my life and people like all of you guys here. Anytime I get to have real discussions in groups like this and see that people are feeling similar or just have insight or whatever, it means a lot because it gives you that sense of belonging. You know, I was that kid that would spend a lot of time alone in this room playing, doing all the sound effects in my head because I knew what I could imagine was better than what came out of my mouth. I had plenty of friends to play with, and I certainly did that, but I really spent a lot of time alone, and that continued into high school, and I didn't think about it in that way. That's just kind of what happened. Toward the point where my family called me a loner. I don't feel that I'm a loner at all. I love the company of people. I just never felt like I belonged. And it's been a while since I've really felt like that. And this group of people that we talk every week, and certainly a lot of us have private chats and stuff like that. That's what that means for me. You guys are the best. I love you very much, and I will see you very soon. And I hope you have a great week, especially Melvor, who can come get his bags anytime as he wants. They're right there. But yeah, you guys are the fucking best. And we'll see you next week for TGL or the panel or something like that. I don't know. Whatever we call it now. I don't know. Do you know? No, you don't. But I will. Next week. Cheers, guys. We'll see ya.